When the lights go out and the hall's empty, the last people left behind are the janitors. They see things no one else does. Shadows that move, whispers in the dark, and doors that never stay locked. These aren't just rumors or ghost stories. These are 3 disturbing, true janitor horror stories told by the people who live them. After this, you may never look at an empty building the same way again. I worked as a night janitor at a public high school in Ohio back in the early 2000s. At first, I thought the job was perfect. Quiet halls, steady pay, and nobody around to bother me. But I learned quickly that quiet doesn't always mean safe. My shift started at 10 p.m. after the evening activities were done. The building was massive, 3 floors, and I had the responsibility of locking up classrooms, emptying trash, and making sure everything was clean for the next day. The first few weeks went smoothly, but there was always something off about the science wing. I can't explain it. Every time I walked down that hall, I felt like someone was following me. One night around 1 a.m., I was sweeping near the chemistry labs. The lights flickered, which wasn't unusual in that old building, but when they came back on, a door halfway down the hall was wide open. I knew for a fact I had locked it earlier. I went to close it, assuming maybe I had forgotten, but inside the classroom, a chair was tipped over. Not just tipped, it looked like it had been thrown. I set the chair upright, locked the door again, and told myself it was probably kids sneaking in. But then I heard footsteps echoing above me on the 3rd floor. That made no sense. Only the first 2 floors were open to after-hours staff, and I had locked the stairwell doors myself. I grabbed my flashlight and went upstairs anyway. The hallway was pitch dark, and the second I stepped onto the 3rd floor, I heard a locked slam shut down the hall. The beam of my flashlight shook as I pointed it forward, but the hall was empty. I walked slowly, every step echoing, and just as I passed a row of lockers, something pounded from the inside. I nearly dropped my light. I yanked one of the locker doors open, but it was empty. Then another bang came, 2 rows down. I swung the light, but saw nothing. By this point, I was sweating, telling myself maybe the pipes were making noises, but deep down, I didn't believe it. I headed back downstairs only to find every classroom door in the science wing was now wide open. All of them. I froze. There was no way anyone could have done that in the 2 minutes I was gone. I backed out of the wing and locked it from the outside, refusing to clean there that night. The following week, I brought it up with one of the teachers. She looked at me strangely and asked if I had ever heard the story of the boy in the lab. She told me years before, a student had died in a freak accident during a late-night chemistry project. Nobody was supposed to be there after hours, but he had stayed behind. The gas line leaked, and by morning, they found him collapsed by the door. After that, the science wing always felt wrong. Teachers avoided working late in those rooms, and students whispered about seeing someone standing in the windows after dark. I stayed at that school for another year, but I never stepped foot on the 3rd floor again. And to this day, when I hear lockers slam or doors creak, I get chills down my spine. I worked as an overnight custodian at a small hospital in New Mexico about 10 years ago. My hours were midnight to 8 a.m., cleaning patient rooms, hallways, and surgical prep areas. Hospitals already have a creepy reputation at night. Dim lights, quiet halls, machines beeping in the distance. But what I went through still keeps me up sometimes. One of my duties was mopping the surgical wing after hours. The wing was closed between midnight and 5 a.m., so I usually had it to myself. I'd plug in my earbuds and just work, but one night, I left them out. That's the only reason I heard it. At around 2:30 a.m., while I was mopping near OR 3, I heard faint whispering. At first, I thought it was staff, but when I peeked inside, the lights were off and the room was empty. I shook it off and kept working, but the whispers followed me, faint but clear, like someone talking just out of earshot. The strangest part was I could occasionally make out words, things like help or please. I asked a nurse the next morning if any patients were moved through that area late at night, and she gave me this look and said, "No one's been in OR 3 for weeks. It's under renovation." That next night, I made the mistake of bringing it up with another custodian. He laughed nervously and told me a story. Years ago, a patient had died in the middle of surgery in OR 3. Supposedly, the equipment failed, and she bled out on the table. He swore some staff refused to go near that room at night. The following week, things got worse. I'd see shadows move under the door when no one was inside. Once, when I was rolling my cart past the window of OR 3, I froze. There was a woman standing inside. She wore a surgical gown, pale as paper, her head tilted, staring at me through the glass. I dropped my mop and ran for a nurse, but when we came back, the room was empty. Security cameras didn't show anything usual. For my final shift there, I was told to deep clean the surgical wing. I walked into OR3 with my cart, forcing myself not to panic. But as soon as I began scrubbing the floor, I heard the heart monitor beep. Slow, steady. The problem was, there was no monitor in the room. The sound grew louder, filling my ears until it flatlined. A long, piercing tone. I stumbled back and the lights above flickered. That's when I heard a whisper directly behind me. It hurts. I spun around, but no one was there. I left my cart, my mop, everything, and didn't come back. I quit the job the next day. Even now, hospitals give me the creeps. I'll never forget that. In 2015, I worked night shifts cleaning a 20-story office building in downtown Chicago. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than my last job. Most of the building cleared out by 7 p.m., leaving just me, a security guard in the lobby, and the hum of fluorescent lights. The building was old, with creaky elevators and long, echoing hallways. My routine was simple: take the service elevator up, clean a floor, work my way down. But the 13th floor, the one most buildings skip, was the worst. This building actually had a 13th floor, and I dreaded going there. It always felt colder than the rest. The offices were empty, no tenants, just old desks covered in dust. But I was required to check it nightly, make sure the pipes weren't leaking. One night, while vacuuming on the 10th floor, I noticed something strange. The elevator dinged, even though I hadn't called it. When the doors opened, the panel showed it had come down from the 13th floor. No one was supposed to be up there. I asked the security guard through my radio, but he said the monitors showed nothing. Curiosity got the better of me. I rode the elevator up, and as soon as the doors opened, I regretted it. The entire floor was dark, except for one office at the far end glowing faintly. I stepped out, every instinct telling me to leave, but I walked toward the lit room, my footsteps crunching on dust. Inside, the office was strangely clean. Papers stacked neatly, a chair pushed in. On the desk sat an old phone, the kind with a rotary dial. It began to ring. I froze. Slowly, I picked it up. Static hissed, then a voice whispered, "Get out." The line went dead. I backed away, heart pounding, but when I turned, the hallway behind me was pitch black. My flashlight flickered, and in the beam, I saw a figure standing at the far end. Tall, unmoving. I ran for the elevator, jabbing the button until the doors opened. Enid. Just before they closed, I swore I saw the figure step closer, its face hidden in shadow. After that, I refused to go to the 13th floor. A few weeks later, I overheard two security guards talking. One mentioned that decades ago, a man had jumped from the 13th floor right from the office I had found lit. Since then, tenants refused to rent that floor. I worked that job for 6 more months, but every time I passed the elevator, I'd hear faint ringing coming from above, and I never answered it again.